Welcome to the KM140 Show. Hi, this is episode 140 of our beekeeping show. Thousands of bees killed in Lyttelton.
We are Gary.
And Margaret.
We are KM140, and KM140 are beekeepers from the hills of the Waitaki Ranges on the wild west coast of Auckland in the North Island of New Zealand.
Yes, we build and sell beekeeping equipment and bees, provide beekeeper services and education.
And in this episode we talk about a suspected pesticide killing of bees near Christchurch, and the largest bee ever has been rediscovered in Indonesia.
Awesome! And we also have Roving Reporters checking in from Canada.
Yes, indeed. And the show notes for this podcast are kiwi.bz/140. And who helped us bring this show to you? This show is made possible by you, our amazing supporters.
Every show we read out our top supporters, and on the first show of each month, we read out all the supporters. Thanks to you all. Without you, we wouldn't be able to keep doing this, and we appreciate it, and you motivate us. Oh, yes.
That's right, and this week we'd like to thank Trish Stretton,
Lisa Morrissey, Dan McGivern, Tony Lum, Nathan Buzzinger, Beekeeping, Malcolm Sanford, Tim Wilcox, Daniel Bokras, Carolyn Sloan,
Robin O'Connell, John Paff, Cameron Mishkin, Chris Palgrave, Finn's Bees,
Gutney Hunter, Buzzed Honeys, Humane Bee Relocation, Mandy Shaw, Barbara Weber, Christopher Brown, Greg Parr, Irene Townsend, Michelle Lash, and Karen Shields. And I nearly ran out of breath there, Gary. Thanks, guys. You are awesome.
What does it mean to be an organic or natural beekeeper?
Well, Gary, it's a great question. And we ask ourselves this regularly because we need to know what we can do to continue this. In my view, it's opportunities for creating your own genetic strains.
Absolutely. If you can breed bees for your local conditions, you're on a winner, aren't you?
Absolutely. And yeah, well, over the last few weeks, we've seen the first month of autumn now coming to an end. But we are still happily enjoying summer-like temperatures around 26 to 28 degrees Celsius. And interestingly, the ruckus of the cicadas has stopped and the days are just filled with calm, quiet sounds of our local tuis with the chirp of crickets, which I just love. And at night, it's so nice to hear them singing.
Yes, it's good, and it's getting a bit cooler at night, so it's a bit easier to sleep, eh?
Absolutely.
And how's the weather been affecting the bee behaviour?
Well, the bees are calm and still enjoying the hot days, and the smell around the apiary is a honey lover's delight. I tell you, it is just wonderful. And the warmth, it's just like, wafting across. It's fantastic. And one thing I have noticed out the front of the hives is that the entrance guarding behaviours are really strong due to the ever-present wasps, which we're seeing a lot of now. I think that the bees are coping well from what I can see, so we'll keep an eye on that.
Yeah, well, the smell of the honey will be attracting wasps, won't it?
I think anything that's dying or walking around or something, because I walked out to the workshop today and I got stung on my leg.
From a wasp?
Yeah, it was a wasp, definitely. No sting in my leg, and I was watching and I thought maybe there's a nest there. So I went back out and had my fly swat with me.
Yeah.
I thought, I'll have a look and see whether it's hanging around. And it was back again, so I gave it a bash.
Was it like a German wasp or like a yellow jacket, or what was that? What kind of wasp?
Yeah, I think it was just a common wasp, as we call them here in New Zealand, rather than German. And it was definitely just a worker. It wasn't a big one.
Oh, okay. We'll keep an eye on them. Yeah, we'll have to get out there and look for some nests, eh?
Yeah, I think so. Definitely.
And what have you been up to then?
Well, I treated our 12 hives and I double dosed them with oxalic acid vaporization. With regards to the wasp side of things, I've been a bit slack on getting the robbing screens on the newer hives, but I'll be getting on to that this week. And, well, the lawns have grown a lot because we just had some rainfall and then we have really sunny days. So the rain and the sunshine have just meant that the grass is never stopping.
And there was plants growing in the guttering. I got rid of some of them.
Yeah, it's fantastic weather for growing stuff, I tell you. All the weeds, even on the sides of the roads, they're looking really healthy and heaps of them.
Not at the moment because they're doing roadworks and it's all dusty, isn't it, everywhere?
Oh, yeah, a bit of that too, eh?
And what's been the result of the treatments you've been doing?
Well, I oiled up the inspection boards and, wow, I was really shocked. There was, must have been over 100 mites on each one.
Was it after you treated them?
Yeah. Which, I mean, you always want to see mite drop, obviously, on an inspection board, but it was quite a lot. So those little beggars are really hanging around, and it's crucial that I get in there and treat again.
Yes. Did you take any photos of that?
No, I didn't. It's hard sometimes when you're working on the hives to be taking photos and stuff, and the camera gets covered in propolis.
I know. We need to, because I used to have a camera with a normal button, and that got covered in propolis too. But yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit difficult for me out there sometimes to do that. So no photos. I'm sorry.
Well, next time you get a mat like an inspection board like that, that'd be good for a photo. Just take it away from the bees and take it later, eh?
Yes, sir.
What are you working on now then?
Well, we know that the UK and the USA folks are in spring, so I was working on some ideas that they probably need to look at, and that's just making sure they have enough gear ready for splitting and to cope with the population growth that's going to occur naturally because it's springtime. And you'll be looking out for any signs of drone laying, because once the temperatures start to warm up, you'll get drone laying starting. And once you get drone laying, it means that you can, if you want to, breed from your surviving winter queens. And so drone laying is the right time to start looking at splitting. So we call it preemptively splitting. That means before you see any queen cells. Spring is the breeding season after all, and we would love to encourage you to consider breeding from surviving queen colonies. So this will add to strong honeybee development. They are ideal because they are used to your local environment rather than getting queens in from somewhere else, which may not be used to your local climate conditions. So in the long term, I think it would be a great benefit to developing your own stronger genetic behaviours. And yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for that if you are going to do that rather than buying in queens. And let's face it, the only people who benefit from that are the queen breeders. So raising your own queens, well, that will save you a bit of money too.
Absolutely. And the sign of success is if you get your bees through winter, isn't it?
Yeah, so well done, guys. You know, if your hives don't make it, then just do a real check inside the hives to see what could have happened. Because I think that, it could be related to varroa, which would, in my view, would be highly likely. Once they get a bit sick, or if there was any mites left in the cells over winter, they can really do some damage. So basically, we have a split method that we have on our website. It's free to download. Yeah, I think that with us, we keep our older queens, and if there's enough resources, we will move her away and she'll just carry on normally. And then once you've got enough resources and you've done your split, the remaining colony is left in the original position and they will naturally raise a new season queen. This is where the beekeeper uses the bee's natural emergency response, similar to if a queen dies. Well, once the new season queen colony is queen right, you could resplit from there. So if they're doing really well, the season's going well, you have a lot more resources. rather than just splitting from your old queen and repeatedly splitting from there, do the first split, then on the new season queen colony, split from there again. That's my thoughts, because then you will be having a resource available to you and the original queen will carry on. She'll think she swarmed, so she won't be going anywhere. And I've proven that this works. And so she'll be a resource for you if you need it.
Yes, absolutely. And speaking of resources, that's on kiwi.bz/split. So check that out.
Yeah, that's for the split method. What else would you? You'll be checking for honey stores. But some of you may want to or have to feed to encourage wax production for comb drawing. So
this is in the Northern Hemisphere, eh?
Yeah, for the colder places. Every change of season, just a little bit of advice is that we check hive status just at the end of the season before the start of the new season, and that we do that in the end of winter, early spring. We call them assessment inspections, and that's just to see where the hives are at, how healthy they are, that there's queen in there and they're laying, and we look at the assessment's all about understanding where the hive is at, and then we would do all the checks and write down what's on the frames. Then we would go and do some sticky board mite checks, establishing if there's any in there, and then treat and try to get all that done before we split. And then what would be after that?
Well, one thing, definitely about disease checking before you split.
Yes.
You don't want to be splitting your AFB, do you?
Absolutely. So that would not be very good at all. So you'll do your split, and then you'll basically start working. Well, you do your assessment, and then you decide 2 weeks later, I go back in and I just check what's changed, because it's all about preparation. And if you know what's going on in the hive, then you can start working out. If you start to see the type of brood changing, then you will want to look at, if you want to do that preemptive split. So you just don't go in and start splitting everything. Do an assessment first where you don't do any work. You just see what's going on in there, close up, check all your notes, because you should record what you see, and then go back 2 weeks later and have a look and see what's going on.
Yeah, but what's the benefits of doing that?
I think what it does is it lets you know, like you said before, about the AFB side of things, that you will know the cell health. You'll see if there's varroa in there. You'll see if you've got a good queen and if she's laying and what she's doing. And then just by looking and seeing where things are, you'll also see how much brood is being laid, the type of brood, and check space. So you can start looking at those things and then close up the hive, go and work out what you need to do the split, because the split method will tell you, that you need about 8 or 9 frames of brood before you go ahead. So you want to make sure you've got those resources. So
yeah, and also new boxes, roofs and stuff like that, eh?
Yeah, and I think that when you're a beginner beekeeper, you need to just go in there and be really calm about it and just have a real good look. Make sure it's not too cold, because you don't want to chill the brood that is there. But it'll just give you a chance to see everything. Then start looking at your treatment side of things, and that's before spring starts.
Yes, and meanwhile in New Zealand, we're coming up to winter. How are you preparing for what's coming up for the bees?
What I've been doing is...
Been treating, that's one thing.
Yeah, that's the first thing. So I like to get the treatments all done and checking mite load. Because we're organic, it is an ongoing thing that we should be doing. And you want to get the bees as healthy as possible to get them into winter. So we're still in autumn. It's still really warm during the day. So it's just like summer at the moment. 23 degrees today for us. So, it's still really warm. So I would expect that there's possibility of the temperatures to drop. And I'll only consider wintering down if the temperatures drop to single digits.
During the day?
Well, no, at night. Yeah, at night, because once they drop to that, then I think that we would be seeing change in bee behaviour, and we haven't seen that yet, so they're still very busy. And I'll retreat all the hives again and continue to monitor. Hopefully we'll see drop in mite numbers, but once I've finished the treatments, I'll wait a week and then do a mite check then, so it's awesome. So it's a start of getting ready for wintering down, which I'll probably look at, a bit more over the next few weeks to see how things are going.
Yeah, you don't want to get caught, like, if you've got a lot of boxes to get rid of, you want to start doing that now, really?
I think so, because with too much space also, if you're doing oxalic acid vaporization, the more boxes you've got, the more spaces for it to dissipate. So you really want to try and keep it concentrated or double dose when you've got more boxes on. But we run our colonies with 2 brood boxes effectively.
Full size or deeps, aren't they?
Yep. For beginners, I think you should use the same size supers so that as you're learning, you don't have to get a separate different size for honey and that kind of thing. If you keep it all one size, and then as you develop your skills more, you can look at doing it differently. But 2 brood boxes is really good, because the second box I call it a multi-use box. By the time we get to winter, that box will be full of honey, and then we check everything, and then we make sure all the brood is brought down. So those are the things that we'll be doing, as we go along.
Well, we've got an article on there about how to winter down hives, which could be useful for some people.
Yep. We've got lots of articles. We're just full of it, aren't we? Absolutely.
I think about 500 at the last count.
That's right. We've been doing an audit of all our blogs, guys, so there's heaps of stuff out there for you, and it's all free.
Yes, we're trying to prune some of the old stuff that's not relevant, I was trying to get rid of some of it, but no.
Yeah, make it more effective for going forward. And the other thing that a lot of people may not be doing, and that's removing queen excluders.
Yes, you should never have queen excluders on hives in winter.
Absolutely, I totally agree with that. What is the point? I mean, if you are running 2 deeps or 2 full depth boxes, then the chances of them getting chilled down below and moving up is very high.
Well, the other thing is they do move up during winter anyway, because if once they've eaten all the honey at the bottom, they move up as a group. And what can happen sometimes is the queen can't get through the queen excluder, so she gets left behind and she gets cold, and then she probably will die,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you run the hives the way we've been running them, and we have got the hives on hive stands, then we have the first box. We put all the brood in the first level. We have the robbing screen on, and what that means is that they won't leave the entrance. So if you had 2 boxes and there was nothing to keep them in the first box, they would go up, and then if there's no robbing screens or entrance reduction, even if there's entrance reduction, it means that the bees are at risk because they're not right by the entrance. So we put the hive mat with the slot in after the first box, and then in the top is the honey. And that's what I've been running, and last year I ran them with all the honey above the brood box, and they just went up there and fed, and so I could just go in through winter and move the honey frames around and bring them down, or put some holes in them so they could feed.
Yes, and you talk about that in your blog post about getting ready for autumn, So if people want to look at more information about that hive mat with a hole in it.
Yeah, there's lots of stuff out there, Gary? One of my handy hints that I tried for 2 seasons, 2 winters, and it's worked really well, especially if you continue to treat with oxalic acid.
Absolutely. And what's our mission?
Our mission, Gary, is to save bees one hive at a time by helping you keep your honeybees alive. It's still autumn here in New Zealand, but things are building up overseas, guys. So we only got one roving report, but we hope everyone else is okay. So let's hear it from Yolanda.
Hello, Kiwi Mana friends. Hello, Gary and Margaret. This is Yoli Bear reporting from Ontario, Canada. My bees are in Kingston, Ontario, and I live in Toronto, Ontario. This weekend was warm enough that I could take a trip and visit my bees. Warm enough, I think, for the time. It's spring. It just became spring. The temperature last weekend was 2 degrees Celsius. So that's about 28 degrees Fahrenheit. The snow is melting, so that's one clue that it's spring. The maple syrup is running. Maple sap, I should say, is running. My neighbors have tapped their trees, and the Canada geese are back. And so those are migratory birds that as soon as it gets cold here in Canada, they're gone for warmer weather. Maybe they end up in Florida, I don't know. But they're back, so that's good. And so I took the opportunity for this warmer weekend to go visit my bees. I have sad news. I started the season last year with 2 hives, and this spring I have none. So they both perished. I won't be discouraged. I have already ordered 2 nukes, and they'll be coming in May. And so I'm going to take everything that I learned last year and improve this year's beekeeping and be a better beekeeper this year and try and get my bees all the way through the season to next season. So, but for everyone else, I hope your bees are okay. I hope they're doing wonderful. And I wish you a good season. Over to you, Gary and Margaret.
It's really sad to hear that you've lost your bees, Yoli. I think that it is hard to lose your girls. But yes, it would be silly not to learn from these things, as you say, learn and find out, really assess inside the colonies and see what's on the frames. Look at the positioning of the hive. Just analyse how things are, the colonies that you've lost, see if there's something you could do differently, because something isn't working. So, we're very sad to hear of the loss of your bees, but we're glad to hear that you're not going to give up.
Yes, that's really important. It's great to hear the geese are back as well, so that's fantastic.
Yeah. It's funny, like with the geese coming, and we had the cicadas coming, and they were just so prolific this year, and now they've gone again. So, if it's not geese, it's cicadas.
That's right. I heard a tip the other day from someone in a cold area. They have that black tar paper on them. They put that on.
Yeah.
They reckon that actually generates enough heat inside the hive to help the bees more, just the solar effect of it.
Okay.
So we'll have to learn more about that, because we don't wrap our hives in New Zealand, do we?
No, there's not really, I think, a big need. I think it just makes them more suffocated. I think they need to have ventilation. They need to be able to have some air that they can bring through the hive, because with their heat that they generate as a cluster, it can make a bit of like condensation, as we've talked about before. But all the best with it, and thanks for taking effort to get in touch with us. That must have been difficult to let us know that, but we wish you all the best, Yoli Bear, and we'll look forward to hearing from how things go in May.
Yes, indeed. We'll hope to see how the next month goes on after May, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you want to be a roving reporter?
Yes, you do.
It would be awesome if you could help create the buzz by being part of the show, reporting in from your location while in the field. If so, could you record a quick update, 1 to 2 minutes of your local weather conditions and what people should be doing with your bees in your area, and email that to gary@kiwimana.co.nz, or there's a link there to the speak pipe on the show notes page.
Awesome, and we look forward to hearing from new folks as well, and those of you who didn't have time to do a report, we look forward to hearing from you next time. Cheers, guys.
Beekeeping news you can use. Yes, first story. Thousands of bees mysteriously dying near Christchurch, which is in the South Island of New Zealand. This is a terribly sad story, isn't it, from Christchurch about Hannah Ewing's bees, who are dying in great numbers. Pesticides seem to be blamed for this incident.
I just reckon it appears that this is not an isolated incident. And we also heard from Amy, who contacted us, and she said she lost her whole hive. But I can't remember where Amy said that she was from. I haven't heard anything since then, but the article states, every day over the past week, Christchurch woman Hannah Ewing has collected an ice cream container full of dead bees from her 3 beehives.
We got in touch with Hannah and we had a little talk with her, so here's our talk with Hannah. Oh, hi Hannah, it's Gary here from Kiwi Mana. How are you?
Hi Gary, good, how are you?
Yeah, good.
Yeah, thanks for reaching out. I really appreciate it.
No, it's all good. So how are you going? Are you doing all right?
Yeah, I'm a teacher during the daytime at a high school, so always coming home a little bit, unraveling from the day. But how about yourself?
Yeah, good. Yeah, no, it's all good. Yeah, we're thinking you guys all down in Christchurch. It's terrible what happened last week, wasn't it?
Yeah, I teach at Linwood College, so we were just right there. We have a couple of students who are directly affected, so we're all just moving through the motions and I think just coming together as a community, which is really helpful as well. But just taking it kind of one day at a time at this point.
It's it's unprecedented, isn't it, really, in New Zealand?
Yeah, it's a big wake-up call for sure. But I'm real happy with the way that people are taking action and coming together, and I think it's really great in that sense. I'm from the States originally.
Yeah, you're from California, is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's just nice to see government kind of taking action as well versus in the U.S. that just doesn't happen. So
yeah, they seem like hamstrung by politics, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit different over there.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think's happened with your bees then?
I was at home. This was back on February 6th. Basically, just noticed that my hives are just right outside my backyard. So I have 3 hives. I'm a hobbyist beekeeper. And we have a wee walkway that's right next to the hives. And I just noticed unusual amount of bees that were kind of on the walkway. And then I walked outside, and then I just saw that mat of just like dead bees in front of each of the hives, like thousands, like enough to fill a 2-liter container. And there were bees, a lot of bees were dead, but there were also a lot that were moving irregularly or like on their backs, or just like were trying to fly up and then falling back to the ground. And I instantly knew that it was some kind of a pesticide because of just the layout of the bees, just the thousands that were dead directly in front of the hive. It wouldn't have been something like, a disease from Varroa. And I had just checked my hives for AFB, so definitely knew it wasn't that as well.
AFB, you would never get bees like that anyway, outside the front.
Yeah, exactly. And just like that was the indicator. So instantly, it was definitely like sad. And then from there, like some feelings of frustration came about. And I made a post on Facebook about what happened, just to try and spread some awareness, just trying to, educate people on the matter, because I think a lot of people just don't understand the implications that their backyard can have, even if that was never the intent, was to, kill bees. Just the fact that can be a byproduct of people using pesticides.
Oh, absolutely. And you're located near a reserve in Lyttelton, eh?
Yeah, so we're literally right towards the major Hornbrook Trek, the Hornbrook Reserve.
Did you contact the council about it?
Yeah, instantly. I've contacted them loads of times, and they've never gotten back to me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, wrote them, called them on numerous different occasions, and just never heard back. And there was actually another beekeeper up the road, or just a hive up the road from me. And I walked up there to check on that hive, and same symptoms. And then there's another 3 hives about like a half a kilometer away from me, and I walked to check on those hives and just asked the people. These were not their hives, but other beekeepers who just have them on their property, and the same symptoms were with those hives as well. And so, I told the people, I just said, you might want to contact your whoever owns the hive if they might want to move them. And one woman who I spoke to said that the same thing happened earlier in the year, and that the beekeeper at that time moved their hive because the hive just died out. And they suspected that it was the council. And but I know that in Christchurch, the council has banned Roundup. And I'm not really sure what else it could be in terms of what they would be spraying. So I kind of just thought maybe it was a wasp poisoning that someone had put out, but it's hard to tell in terms of the scale. I'd be curious to even try and get together with a couple other beekeepers in the Lyttelton area to see if their hives were affected.
Yeah, you could get them tested, the bees, to see how they died.
Yeah, so I've got some bees in the freezer, and I did talk to another beekeeper who's actually in the area, and he said the same thing has been happening to his bees the last 4 years around this time of year. I thought was really interesting, and so he and I have been having a conversation, and he said he was going to send his bees in for testing, and that he would get back to me as soon as he heard back in terms of what that testing was, and if he would think I would need to send mine in. So we've been kind of in contact in terms of that. But hearing that just made it, real interesting in the sense that there's something that's happening in the wider area, especially if it's over the past 4 years.
I really encourage you to report that to the EPA because they need to get the data.
Yeah, it's not okay. I think it's one of those things where I just think about how, Christchurch in general, but also just New Zealand, how there's this, beekeeping and also farming, this kind of relationship there. But then you get into urban beekeeping, and I just feel that kind of goes out the window a bit more in terms of educating and also just, living sustainably, not just for farming and not just for, beekeepers where that's their job, but, for someone like me who really just enjoys having bees. And I like to educate other people about bees as well.
Yeah, well, this is terrible, what's happened. It probably, because quite often a lot of people use fipronil to kill wasps, and they may have added it with sugar syrup or something stupid, and then the bees have just been attracted to it. So that, it's hard to say without the testing, but that's happened in a few places.
Yeah, and I know that they do the Vespex. I really just think a lot of the time it's people who just aren't really aware, who are putting, a trap out to get the wasps and aren't understanding that in that process the bees are getting hurt as well. And there's probably instances where even our native birds might be drinking that sugar water.
Toys and stuff, eh?
Yeah, exactly.
And the fact they're getting back to the hive really shows that they are drinking or taking something on board, eh?
Exactly. Yeah, because they are, and that's the thing too, is they are back at the hive. And my hives are still alive. They haven't died out. And at this point, I was really fortunate. 2 of my hives were quite strong. I have one that's a bit weaker, so I'm just keeping an eye on them. But at the moment, it's just a bit of a numbers game in terms of, I'm feeding them and doing my best to just monitor how they're going. But I've thought about moving them out of Lyttelton and, a bunch of other things. But at the end of the day, I just want them to be at my house because that's what I intended to do. And I just feel it'd be a real shame to have to move them out of Lyttelton because of it. If that's what needs to happen, then that's what needs to happen.
It seems that it must be someone local doing something. It's got to be if it's affecting other beekeepers in the area. And because you're a bit out of Christchurch, you're kind of near the coast, eh?
Yep. Yeah. So Lyttelton is like right where the port is. So actually Lyttelton is like a high-risk place to have bees anyways, just because if anything does come into New Zealand, then we would be like the first to see any new threats that might come into the hives. So in terms of just like New Zealand in general, especially like the South Island, it's really great if we can have bees here too, just to kind of let other beekeepers know if there is something that comes in that regard.
Yeah, kind of like sentinel hives, eh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we just moved over here. My partner and I moved to Lyttelton back in, it's almost been a year now. And before that, we were kind of up over the hill on the other side of the port. And so it's definitely something that's like just new for me being on this side. And I never had any issues with pesticides in, the 5 years that I've lived here.
Got to be something in the area, Hannah. Has to be.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I really encourage you to submit get them tested by the EPA or whatever they suggest. So find out what the problem is.
No, I think that's great advice, and I will do that because I have the bees in my freezer just waiting to be sent off.
Yeah, no, it's a good idea. Well, I mean, we're all gutted for you. It's really terrible what's happened. So.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. There's been a lot of people who've been really supportive. But yeah, I can always let you know too what happens when I send the bees off to get tested and just like how the hives go if you're interested in that as well. That
would be really great. Get an update what's happening with them. Yeah, fantastic. We can keep the audience aware of it.
Yeah, and then same with the other beekeepers I've been in contact with, and at this point I'm just trying to gather as much information as I can, so that way just to prevent it from happening in the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm just really hoping it's more something locally in the area and not the council, because that'll be a different type of battle.
I can't imagine the council doing some dodgy thing with fipronil. I'd be very surprised.
I'd be surprised as well.
Yeah, I mean, generally Vespex is pretty safe because it's protein based, so the bees don't like it.
Yeah.
But it could be some cowboy putting it in jelly, like sugar or something, or jam or something that the bees like. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll just keep monitoring them and do my best to just kind of spread some awareness within the area.
We'll get your story out, so hopefully some people can learn a bit more anyway, and we'd love to hear happens with them in the future.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Appreciate it.
No worries, Hannah.
And yeah, I'll let you know how it goes once I find out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, thanks for taking the time tonight to talk to us.
Oh, of course, my pleasure. Thank you. Have a good night.
Okay, well, that's awful, eh? Thanks, Hannah, for joining us again, but that's awful.
Yeah, it's never easy to talk about these things, but I think it is really important for us to bring this to you guys, because I think that if you're experiencing anything like this, there are some takeaway things that you can take from this article, and Gary's got some ideas on that, eh, Dale?
Yeah, I mean, it's sad that she sort of felt helpless about it all, because, you just don't know what to do you?
Well, you reach out and you talk to people who are the authorities about stuff, and they don't even bother to get back to you.
Yeah, I was shocked by that. Like, she talked to the council and they haven't got back to her. That's crazy. God, what do you pay your rates for?
And I can see why she feels a bit helpless, and her hives are located near a reserve in Lyttelton, so,
Yeah, and she doesn't think, we heard the interview, but she doesn't think it was the council. She thinks it's probably some scallywag. That's my suspicion too.
Yeah, and who else made a comment, Gary?
Well, Karen Cos from Apiculture New Zealand, she's advised people to be careful that any bait placed for wasps isn't attractive to honeybees. So, you don't put the fipronil in sugar syrup or jam or anything like that.
So what are you talking about? What's fipronil?
Fipronil is a poison used to eradicate wasps. It's the active ingredient of Vespex. I think it's a pyrethroid pesticide.
I thought it was used in flea treatments, because a lot of people were saying they put put it into a wasp bait and it kills wasps.
Yeah, I think it is used in some fleet treatments, and some fleet treatments have got neonicotinoids in them as well, haven't they?
So I guess the takeaway is don't put anything in a wasp trap that is sweet. Don't use sugar syrups in them. If you're trying to attract wasps at this time of the year, it's generally protein they're after.
Yeah, you can use like jelly meat or something, like, dog food or something, but obviously you don't put it on the ground. A dog can eat it. I mean, to be honest with you, if you're going to do wasps, I would look at getting Vespex, because at least it's protein-based. It won't be attractive to bees, and a lot of beekeepers had a great success with it, haven't they?
Yeah, absolutely. We always think that when you've got wasp issues, you need to find the nests. I mean, that is the ultimate way to get rid of these things.
Yeah, and I also, as I said in the interview, please report any suspected pesticide incidents to the EPA in New Zealand. We will have the link in the show notes there, so I encourage you all to do that, because the more information they've got, the more chance they're going to actually do something about this.
Yeah, my thoughts are write a letter stating your concerns, when it happened, what was going on in your area, why you believe that this is not related to your own work with your bees, and send them a sample of bees. Keep a copy of everything that you send to them and put dates and everything on. Any person you speak to in any of these institutions or government agencies, get their name. It's hard to run away from you if you get a name and the dates you spoke to them, and just keep all those notes, because then you have some fallback if they question whether you got in touch with them.
Yeah, and as Hannah did, the day that they were died, she put them in the freezer, like the dead bees, so that's a good idea too, to preserve them until the EPA are asking for samples, because if you leave them outside, they'll probably decompose and stuff, wouldn't they, obviously?
You put them in a jar or something.
I mean, to me, the area, it seems to me like something's happening in the area, because we've heard of 3 different people who have had issues in the area, so
yeah,
something's going on.
So what other feedback did we get regarding this?
Well, we heard from Phil York. He says it's all the pesticides farmers spray on their crops, plus council spraying weed killer everywhere. Well, that's yet to be determined, but yeah, probably.
And Newton Judy says, Phil, it's also people spraying for cockroaches and spiders in their gardens.
Yep, that's right, because pesticides that people buy at home, used for home, still kill bees.
You know what, Gary? I was just so, what can I say, peed off today, because it was a windy day today, and I saw a guy with one of those things on his back spraying just willy-nilly in a drain on the side of the road.
Did you yell out, is that organic?
I was just like, what are you thinking, man? Because where we live, all the drain goes into the waterways, and I was just like, I just couldn't believe it. And it's everything against what it states on how to apply that stuff. Anyway.
You mean the instructions around it?
Exactly. Eh? The instructions are there. My instructions to anybody thinking of spraying is don't, or use organic sprays. But, yeah, anyway. I digress, Gary.
You do.
Tangent.
Okay, and Rana McNeil says stop spraying Roundup councils. Oh, Rana agrees with you.
Absolutely. And Robert McGuinness said, Rana, I know that some spray Roundup around hives with no issue. This is a bit more serious, though. I'm not sure about that.
I disagree, because I've read multiple studies about the effects of Roundup on bees. It affects their genes, it affects their navigation skills. It may not be an instant kill, Robert, like in this situation, but it does affect them in some parts. So
I think that the thing that people don't realise is that these chemicals go in the soil, they stay in the soil, and with bees, just because you don't kill them immediately does not mean they are not harmed.
Yeah, I agree. I think unless you're doing a major study, Robert, I wouldn't recommend that to people.
Yeah,
it's my opinion.
Avoid it. You know what? I don't understand why you would risk that and I just don't know, because it would be, if you're spraying it around there, it'll go on the woodware, it'll go into the woodware. The bees will always clean the woodware, so they're going to get it into their system. It's not good at all.
No, and Rana replies, pesticides, herbicides and fertilisers, major killers of bees. There's always issues with sprays.
Oh, and then there's fungicides. People forget about fungicides. They are so bad in killing the good stuff in the soil.
Yeah, I know there's been a recent study about the spraying of fungicides mixed with an insecticide in the almond groves.
Oh, for goodness sake, that's just, oh my God. Gina says, I blame the government. And she's got a little happy face there.
Yeah. No, and Lee Diggs says, sad face.
Yeah, it is sad to hear of losses. It's absolutely, I really feel for Hannah and Amy.
And Rachie Meikle says, wow, that's really odd. Bees are so essential. Absolutely.
Yep. And Colette Nicole says, Rachie Meikle, it's because Christchurch is cursed, I tell ya.
Yeah. Well, I've not had much luck, have they?
No,
but this is back in February, so this isn't part of what's happened.
So Heather's Bow says, Colette Nicole, nope, no curse, just dumb nut using spray near beehive.
I agree.
Go, Heather's Bow.
I agree. I think that's what they'll determine. It's someone doing a homemade wasp poison or something. But,
Yeah, I reckon it does point to something, but one of them said that it's been happening for 4 years, so it's someone who's doing something on a regular basis. So is there a pest control guy out there or someone who is doing that? Maybe contact the local newspaper or something.
Well, this was on Stuff New Zealand, so it's had a bit of press. But, I mean, if this guy thinks or guy or girl, let's not be sexist, if he thinks or she thinks is doing the right thing, then maybe they don't care. Or it could be the worst situation. It could be someone that hates bees.
Oh, gosh, that thought did cross my mind, but I didn't want to go there.
Mm.
All right, then, let's move along, Gary?
Well, this is a good story from Indonesia. Its world's largest bee, not seen for 38 years, has been rediscovered on a remote Indonesian island. A bee that was thought to have been extinct has been found in Indonesia. Wow, imagine taking a sting from one of these guys.
They are massive.
Your whole arm would blow up, wouldn't it?
The article shows you a picture of a honeybee and the Indonesian bee. And wow, what a difference.
It's like a helicopter.
Yeah. So, a quote from the article says, a group of scientists and insect enthusiasts has rediscovered the world's largest bee while on an expedition on a remote Indonesian island. It goes on to say,
Dr. Hurd, an Australian bee expert at the University of Sydney, regardless of its ecological niche, Dr. Hurd said it needed protection from threats such as deforestation for palm oil, which is rife throughout Indonesia. I think we have a responsibility to preserve all life on this planet, he said. It's being the biggest bee in the world, it's rare, and it was discovered by Wallace, who was a legend in his field. He discovered evolution via natural selection along with Darwin.
That's just awesome historical stuff there.
It's so true. I mean, you're taking away the ecology of an island, so everything that's living there is going to not have a place to live, are they?
That's right, and the interesting thing is that it's been since 1981. That was the last one, and the one before that was in 1859. I mean, that's a huge amount of time not to see these things.
Because this is a remote island. Are they doing deforestation on that island? Did it say in the article?
It didn't state in the article about that. It is happening across Indonesia.
Well, I mean, can they just leave this island for the bee? That's what I think.
Well, it's possible.
It's the problem with deforestation. It's just, it's they get good money for it, don't they? So that's why they're doing it, which is sad, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think, we talked about the historical value of this find. So if it was in 1859 and now it's recently, there's hope there. But the problem is that like many things, if you get rid of the food source or the environment around these things, we're going to have a lot of impact, and it's very concerning for our future, I think. And yeah,
absolutely.
Anyway.
Well, and good news, it doesn't die after stinging.
Good news. Jeez Louise.
For the bee,
not big one.
Not for the person. It has a 6 centimetre wingspan and giant pinches on its head.
They look really vicious.
And what's it been dubbed?
Oh, you know it, Gary. It's been dubbed
the Flying Bulldog, or Wallace's giant bee, Megasol Pluto. Has a wingspan of a whopping 6 centimetres.
Yeah,
that's big, eh?
That's huge, man. Just imagine the sound of a whole colony.
Yeah, I mean, they don't seem to live in huge colonies, do they?
No, but just imagine it. If they did swarm, it would sound like a squadron coming in.
Imagine if you had a swarm of those in the middle of a town.
Oh, my giddy
People
aunt.
would freak out, wouldn't they?
Yeah. Holy moly. But yeah, that's a good article, and I think a lot of you will probably feel the same way as we do. You know, losing something like this would be it would be very sad.
It would be tragic.
But we did get some other feedback.
Good.
Yeah.
What's Edgar got to say?
Edgar Samuel Ross says, good, now leave it alone.
I agree.
And Hayley Sunderland said, well, leave it alone then. Might last another 38 years.
Absolutely.
Paul Sholton says, surprised face.
And Lisa Lynn Simonson said, and they collected the specimen and put it in a jar, shaking my head.
I think in the article it says that they released it.
Did they?
Yeah, because they didn't want to harm it. That was only to do the study from what I...
Oh, okay. Oh, that's good news.
I'm pretty sure they let it go because that was one of my concerns.
Yes, indeed. And we've actually started putting the link on the show notes, which is kiwi.bz/140 to the Facebook post. So you guys can join the discussion and add your comments to it as well.
Awesome.
Feedback from you. We got a review on the Facebooks from Chris Palgrave. He says, I love the Kiwi Mana Buzz podcast. Gary and Margaret are always fun, interesting and informative. The conversation is informed, honest, balanced and open-minded. Keep it up. You guys are awesome.
Oh, shucks. Thanks, Chris.
It's awesome, isn't it?
Yeah. Thanks for taking time to send us that.
Yeah, and we try and have a balanced conversation, don't we?
Yeah, it warms our heart.
It does.
Do you love what we do? Did you find something useful for your beekeeping in our last show? Or are you subscribing to our free newsletter? Or do you want to help us produce more content? In addition to being a supporter, it also gives you some extra things, like exclusive secret RSS feed that provides you with early access to shows. You get the shows a week before the general release date. Awesome. And also exclusive supporter behind-the-scenes videos via the Patreon application. And we also thank you personally on our podcast. So the other thing, the final thing that you get by becoming a supporter, you will get a warm heart. You'll sleep better at night knowing you are helping the beekeeping community and helping Gary and Margaret produce more shows, videos and blog posts for the beekeeping community. So, Gary?
So why not join us today at kiwi.bz/banana. And just to note, our supporter site is based in the US and which operates in US dollars. Yes, and the show notes for this podcast are kiwi.bz/140. So thanks for joining us this week. It's been fantastic.
Absolutely, guys. And, you know, we just wish you all the best for your start of your season overseas, folks. And if it's going to be as good as our one. You guys are going to have such a good time, and it's going to go banana. So banana.
Absolutely, and you're still thinking of you guys in Christchurch down there, so hang in there, guys.
Yeah, and don't forget Westport, they've just had some really severe weather.
That bridge was horrendous, eh?
Yeah.
Washed out by the rainfall.
So, yeah, it's been a bit challenging here in New Zealand at the moment, but, we're staying strong and, staying strong.
Okay, thanks, guys.
See ya. Enjoyed that one, Gary.